start with the breaking update that's coming in. The high-stakes Islamabad talks between US and Iran have collapsed. We're learning that US has walked away without any deal in Islamabad. The US Vice President JD Vance has confirmed that negotiations ended without any agreement in sight. Listen in to what he said.
Well, good morning, everybody. And let me say a couple of notes of appreciation. First of all, to the Prime Minister of Pakistan and to Field Marshal Munir, who were both incredible hosts. And whatever shortcomings in the negotiation, it wasn't because of the Pakistanis, who did an amazing job and really tried to help us and the Iranians bridge the gap and get to a deal. We have been at it now for 21 hours, and we've had a number of substantive discussions with the Iranians. That's the good news. The bad news is that we have not reached an agreement, and I think that's bad news for Iran much more than it's bad news for the United States of America. So we go back to the United States having not come to an agreement. We've made very clear what our red lines are, what things we're willing to accommodate them on, and what things we're not willing to accommodate them on. And we've made that as clear as we possibly could, and they have chosen not to accept our terms. Questions?
Let me go across to Irfan, who's joining us from Islamabad. Thank you so much for connecting with us. You've been tracking all the details there. There has been no deal in sight. After hours of diplomacy, the process now appears to be back to square one, raising uncertainty over the ceasefire that is in place and the broader path to de-escalation as well. Take us through what really happened there in Islamabad in the last 24 hours.
Actually, we were not hoping that, there'll be a big breakthrough today, but at least, getting there both the sides here in Islamabad is a big achievement for Pakistan, and this is what JD Vance, he has appreciated the efforts of Pakistani high-ups, that at least they brought both the sides on the table, and they do not, doubt on the intentions of Pakistani authorities, and he just accepted that, Pakistan just, bridge the gap between Iran and United States. They sat together after like 47 years. I believe that, the talks would continue, and, another signal came from US President Donald Trump. He has said that, he has already won the war, and I believe that he is not going to take any action despite the failure of the talks, because he has said he has achieved all the targets, military and, the nuclear sites. He has just destroyed everything in Iran, and a couple of days back he gave briefing and just told all the details that how he destroyed Navy and Air Force and ground forces and the nuclear installations, military installations. So that means Donald Trump once again, he insisted that he has won war in Iran, but he just again said that it doesn't affect him whether talks continue or not. If there is any breakthrough or not, but I believe that technical level talks would continue. But United States of America, it has made very clear that they do not want Iran to develop nuclear weapons. We have not heard any word about Strait of Hormuz. That means there is some discussion going on Strait of Hormuz. So that is a good news. From today's marathon talks, and from Iran's side, they have given a signal that there was excessive demands from United States.
Absolutely, but there's still that 1 week long negotiation window that is still open. So it remains to be seen whether the talks will continue, and also what Iran has to say on this, because US has clearly said that there has been no headway as far as the negotiations are concerned. Stay on with us. Let me also go across to Sarah Claire, foreign policy expert. Thank you so much for connecting with us. I'll come back to you once again. Let's once again listen into what the Vice President said.
To the Prime Minister of Pakistan and to Field Marshal Munir, who were both incredible hosts. And whatever shortcomings in the negotiation, it wasn't because of the Pakistanis, who did an amazing job and really tried to help us and the Iranians bridge the gap and get to a deal. We have been at it now for 21 hours, and We've had a number of substantive discussions with the Iranians. That's the good news. The bad news is that we have not reached an agreement, and I think that's bad news for Iran much more than it's bad news for the United States of America. So we go back to the United States having not come to an agreement. We've made very clear what our red lines are, what things we're willing to accommodate them on, and what things we're not willing to accommodate them on. And we've made that as clear as we possibly could, and they have chosen not to accept our terms.
All right, let me get you more perspective and go across to Sierra Claire, a foreign policy analyst. Thank you so much for connecting with us. The high-stakes Islamabad talks, as you also heard, between U.S. and Iran, they have collapsed, with U.S. now walking away without any sort of deal. So do you believe we are back to square one after what has happened for over 6 weeks, more than 1 month, as far as the war is concerned?
Well, I wouldn't say that we're back to square one. I think we've gained information. We now know that the Iranian regime, this new Iranian regime that came to these talks, did not learn anything from President Trump's operations and the military successes, the U.S. military successes. And so we're going to continue the military campaign, and we're also going to continue looking for more reasonable leaders out of Iran. I don't think that quest has ended either. I think it's highly, highly unlikely at this point, but I think it will continue.
All right, so it remains to be seen how this really pans out. Let me also bring in my colleague Mayank, who's been tracking all the details as far as the negotiations are concerned. Clearly, Mayank, the negotiations have hit a dead block. We're learning that Iranian side and U.S. side, they have not reached any sort of agreement. And U.S. saying that this is a bad news for Iran, as they were quite flexible and accommodating when it comes to their demand that relates to nuclear enrichment. And for now, we're also getting in visuals of JD Vance. It appears that he is now leaving for United States.
Which means if JD Vance is leaving, that means that it is finally ending. And as Sarah was talking about, and there had been lots of issues and things which have come out, and specifically one issue which has been spoken about by the Vice President has been the nuclear aspect, which means for the US it had been the most significant point, and in any which way they want that not even in the future also the Iran should have any capability to become a nuclear empowered or nuclear powered nation, because they had by now already accumulated technologies to deliver those weapons into the surrounding and to the area, which they have already displayed in so many ways during this long war of around 40 days. So it is really bad, but the way one statement which has come out from the president and saying that they have achieved all the objectives, mind it, he is saying it publicly, and it is a statement which says that all the objectives of the operations have been achieved. Now, to begin with, to remind our viewers, the objectives were initially, one, to change the regime, two, to destroy the military capabilities of Iran and not let it become a nuclear powered nation. At least these three, or maybe the second two, can be clubbed as one, which is military capability and nuclear capabilities, because they will require missiles to deliver those weapons. So these two important aspects, as President, we can decipher that as President is saying that objectives, war objectives, mind it, the operational objectives have been achieved. So does it mean, but we have to wait for the future to see that the way the things pan out. But initially, to interpret the statements which have come out, that means US is in a state that they could have accepted so many things, or is it also in a state to exit out of the this war which had been continuing. Also, let us interpret for our viewers that also means that Israel, which is not yet being talked about, might continue with the kind of operations it has been continuing with. So all these three aspects, which is like talks have ended, nuclear has been the most sticky points, and President saying that all the war objectives have been achieved, these three bringing together can be leading to a conclusion that still we have to wait for some time to watch out whether the operations in Middle East, which is military operations, will continue or not, and we have to also watch what kind of overtures now Iran will be making, because it is in a scene, unless they come out public, as you have repeated time and again, that we have to still wait for the words, official words coming out from Iran's side to understand their perspective. So unless they come out, it means that Iran is ready to take up or to carry on with the kind of operations.
Absolutely, very important to wait and see what Iran has to say on this as well. But have a look at the visuals on your screen of JD Vance, Vice President of the United States, just after addressing the media there and going on to state that there has been no headway in the negotiations as far as the talks in Islamabad are concerned. He has now, it appears, he has left for the United States. He has made it clear that there has been no agreement that has been reached between the two nations. This is a bad news for Iran, as they've chosen not to accept the term, saying that the United States side has been quite flexible and accommodating when it comes to their demand. But clearly there has been no headway. Let me also bring in Colonel Utkarsh Rathore, defense expert. Thanks so much, sir, for connecting with us. We are getting in visuals of the U.S. delegation leaving from Islamabad. There has been no headway in negotiation, but before leaving, JD Vance has made it quite clear that we are leaving, but there will be a final offer. So it remains to be seen what Iran has to do on that. Colonel Utkarsh Rathore.
Akanksha, starting a war and squaring it off with a good deal is an art. The Iran actually has been little obstinate here after giving a very good account of itself during this 40 days war. They should have done a better flexible approach. For Iran, they should understand that being nuclear is an intangible thing. It is not possible to them under this geostrategic environment. So here, the Iranians could have done little flexible approach on this. What is the sticking point? Reparations? That could have been taken care of by unfreezing of the assets and lifting of the sanctions. They are bestowed with best of the natural resources. That could have been done. But if they are still maintaining high point on two things, nuclear and also the proxies, the patronization of proxies, these things are going to make no headway. It was a beautiful opportunity for both the parties to reach a settlement, or at least agree to disagree and meet in some other venue for second round. And this opportunity has been actually missed by Iran. Iran is in no position to continue with the conflict. Let us face it.
All right, so it remains to be seen how they really react to this. But have a look at the visuals on your screen of JD Vance leaving from there. But before leaving, he has made it quite clear that there will be a final offer to Iran as well. So it remains to be seen whether they will accept that or not. Their offer, they said, that have been quite flexible and accommodating. Let me also bring in another guest, Sarah Claire, foreign policy analyst. Sarah, we're also getting in reports that U.S. delegation wants talks completely halted because there were reports that there was going to be a second round of talks between U.S. and Iran on day 2 of the negotiation in Islamabad. But so far, we are learning that the U.S. delegation has said that they want talks to be completely halted. Your take on this?
Well, based on what the statements that President Trump has put out and what we just heard from JD Vance, I think that President Trump had probably got an idea as these talks progressed throughout the day that the Iranians were not willing to budge on the nuclear issue, which is the key red line for the U.S. side. And so, given that and the fact that President Trump, we just got the confirmation, I think I mentioned it this morning, but we actually got confirmation that the U.S. Navy has transited a ship across the Strait of Hormuz. They're also deploying drones to sweep for mines across the Strait of Hormuz. So that was one of Iran's key points of leverage, and President Trump already had begun the process of taking it away today. And unfortunately, we're not seeing a response, a reasonable response from the Iranian side, given that one of their major points of leverage was also lost today. So, maybe that's why they're giving them this one last chance to reconsider what's been offered, now that we have, in fact, taken, steps to kind of retake the Strait of Hormuz from the Iranians. But it sounds to me like they're just not willing to budge on the nuclear issue, which they put out statements about that. And we all kind of hoped that it was, blustering, or it was, kind of a strongman statement. And that once we actually got into the room and got across the table, that, we might hear a different story. But my guess is that was the red line.
Absolutely. So it remains to be seen what Donald Trump also has to say on this. All eyes will be on, in fact, his post on social media as well. Let me once again go back to our correspondent, Irfan, who's joining us from Islamabad. Irfan, we're learning that U.S. side is reluctant to continue the negotiations with Iran, and there's still a 1 week long window for negotiation that remains. What has been the friction point as far as the talks are concerned? Because JD Vance has made it quite clear that their demand was that Iran should not seek nuclear weapon or tool to achieve weapons in future as well. Take us through what has been the friction point as far as the negotiations are concerned.
I think the Iranian point of view, it came and, it was quite clear that there were a lot of demands from the United States. I mean, they used the term that excessive demand. So one of them was, the nuclear, to just eliminate the nuclear capability. I mean, Iran has not categorically denied it, but it has said that, its sole purpose is for, civil, for not military purposes, but I believe that Pakistan would try to convince Iran not to leave talks. Because it's a very rare opportunity for them after like 4 decades. They sat face to face with United States, but it all depends now on Iranian head of this regime and Donald Trump, how they react to this situation, because Donald Trump sometimes he loses temperament and give certain statements.
All right, so it remains to be seen how this pans out in the coming days. Stay on with us. I'll come back to you once again. We have another breaking update coming in as